Things are really bad for black boys here in the UK, and in this video I want to explain that while when we focus on UK drill you can say, oh, that's just a minority of black boys doing that sort of stuff, and that's true. Not a minority of black boys are involved in gangs, that's absolutely true. However, I'm going to show some data in this video to show you that overall things are looking pretty bleak for black boys here in the UK. And I'm saying this, I make these videos in order for us to focus our minds, focus our energies as adults, as black adults in particular, on this as being a critical problem for us, in order that we can start to come together and work out and solutionize to get ourselves out of the mess that we find ourselves in. First of all, I want to send a big shout out to More Education, who are sponsoring this video. More Education is an online tuition program for children in years 7 through to year 11. Their team of experienced tutors has helped hundreds of children in GCSE English and GCSE Maths, achieving a pass rate of over 90%. And their prices are very competitive also, starting at just £11 per hour. So click on the video description if you'd like to find out how More Education can help your child to achieve their potential and thrive. So let's dig into some data. I'm going to warn you in advance, these are some pretty depressing data that we're going to look at here. However, I think it's important for us to stop hiding our heads in the sand and to realize and understand the depth of the problems that we face in this country, and in particular that black boys, black teenagers in particular, are facing if we're going to, like I said, if we're going to be able to actually work together and come up with solutions. We can't come up with solutions if we don't realize that there are problems and that these problems are pretty severe problems. So we're going to look at data coming from the criminal justice system here. And first of all, let's look here at the convictions of children and young adults by ethnicity in 2022. And you'll see here we're going to be focusing on the bright blue. That's the black demographic there, right? And you can see there in every single year there, we've got 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. You'll see that the number of black offenders convicted in each of those years is way above the proportion of black children and young people in the population as a whole. So for example, in 2022, you'll see there that 2,600 black children and young adults were convicted of a crime in that year. That's far, far more than the number of Asians who were convicted in that year. You're looking at about 3 times the number, even though Asians make up a bigger proportion of children and young people here in the UK by quite a bit. And then when we drill a little bit closer, let's just look at the male children. What difference does that make? We saw that 2,600 children and young adults were convicted in 2022. Black children and black young adults convicted in 2022. What figure is it if we just look at the males? It only goes down to 2,500. So basically, and this is the case across all ethnic groups, by the way, males, generally speaking, commit by far the lion's share of crimes committed in this country. And I believe this is the same in countries around the world. The reasons for that is something that maybe I'll get into in a future video once I look into it. But we're probably looking at something to do with something within males, either how we're socialized or maybe something to do with our biology that leads us to take more risks, to be more aggressive, to be more, do you know what I mean? To do those kinds of things which are likely to get us in contact with the criminal justice system and to become eventually convicted of crimes. Now, if we drill a little bit deeper into the 2022 figures, we'll see that there are the overrepresentation of black boys in the criminal justice system is particularly notable in certain offence types. We see that the biggest overrepresentation can be found in robbery, first of all. Black children and young adults make up 30% of those children and young adults convicted of robbery in 2022. Similarly, drug offences, 23% of them are made up of this is black boys, by the way, black boys and black young adult boys, male young adults. 28% of possession of weapons convictions. What we see in the UK drill music is kind of reflecting a wider issue. Yes, not all black youths, a minority of black boys are directly involved in the gangs, but when you look at the people who are convicted of these crimes, black boys are massively overrepresented in those kinds of crimes which you hear about in the drill. The drugs, the robbing, the possession of weapons. They're not making this stuff up out of their heads. They are reporting, frankly, they are reporting what is going on in the streets of Lambeth, Southwark, Newham, Hackney, Haringey, Brent. They're reporting what's going on in these areas. Obviously, they're at the more extreme end. They're like really immersed into it, and it's become really part of their identity. But the point I'm trying to make here is that black boys in general are much, much, much more likely to be involved in those kinds of things, and thus much more likely to be convicted of those kinds of offences. And I've got some data together to show you that when you're comparing the numbers of black boys who are very high achieving educationally with the numbers of black boys and young adults who are being convicted of crimes, it makes for very, very sad, depressing and sobering reading. I've talked in my previous videos about the fact that a much lower proportion of black children achieve 3 A's or above at A level compared to Asians and whites and other groups. Yeah, we've looked at that already. What I've done, I've looked at the figures from 2022 and I've focused on the males. So what I've done, I've split it basically half. So the numbers of black children who got 3 A's or above in 2022, I've cut that in half to say that 50% are male, 50% are female. To be honest, I couldn't find the specific figures, but I imagine that a larger proportion of those are females because, as I've talked about in previous videos, females in general do better in formal education than males do, and that is particularly the case for black students. So anyway, I've got figures for the males of the Asian males, the white males, and the black males who got 3 A's or above at GCSE. Then I've also done likewise for the students who graduated from university with a first-class honours degree. I've done the same thing, looked at figures from 2022 and I've basically halved it. Again, that's probably overestimating the number of males who got the firsts, because females tend to do better at university than males do, I believe. But I've just halved it. So we've got figures again for the black students, for the white students, and for the Asian students, the males in those demographics who got first-class honours degrees. Then I've combined it with that data that we've seen already there for the children and young adults who were convicted of a crime in 2022. And what do we find? The number of children and young adults who were convicted amongst the white demographic, you're looking at, they're about 1/10 in comparison to the number of males who got 3 A's at A level and who got first-class honours degree. When you look at the Asians, it's a smaller proportion. It's about 1 in 20 boys and males convicted of a crime in 2022 versus those who got 3 A's and who got a first-class honours degree. And then you can see it there. Look at the size of the red chunk there for the black males, as opposed to those who got 3 A's at A level and those who got a first-class honours degree. One more data set that I want to just show you is when you look at the homicide victims, you look at the average age of the homicide victims. These come from government data from the Home Office somehow or another. I think it's the ONS. I'll put all the sources to the data, of course, will be available on my Substack, eliwananda.substack.com. Make sure you sign up, and if you want to become a paid supporter as well, that's the best way to do it. You can also buy me a coffee as well if you appreciate the work that I'm doing, if you'd like to help me to make this sustainable, to put more of these videos out on a more regular basis. So looking at the average age between 2013 and 2023, these are pie charts that I've created from existing data. You only get these pie charts by going to my Substack. You'll see that for the white homicide victims, on average between 2013 and 2023, so this is over 10 years, 13% of the victims were aged between 16 and 24. And 18% of the victims were aged between 25 to 34. So altogether, that is about, 30%, roughly 30% of victims were aged between 16 and 34 for the white homicide victims. So around about 1/3. And then you look at the figure for the black homicide victims. Look at that. 42% of the victims were aged between 16 and 24. And another 24% of the victims were aged between 25 and 34. That is nearly 70% of black homicide victims between 2013 and 2023 on average. About 70% of the black victims were young adults, young, very, very young people, aged between 16 and 34. So what I've tried to do with this data is to demonstrate to us all, hopefully to remove any delusions that we might have, to remove any false opinions, false ideas that we might have with regard to the world that black youth, black boys in particular, are experiencing. This is a crisis, guys. This is a crisis, and it's not an acute crisis, it's a chronic crisis going back at least 10 years. In the data we've looked at, this goes back at least to 2013, but it goes back further than that. We've been having these conversations for a very, very long time. I think one of the things that happens, in my last video, I talked about the no snitching culture that you see often around, in these gang circles and whatnot. So when there's a crime, the police will often complain that no one wants to say what's going on because of the no snitching culture, the honor of no, you don't tell the police, you don't involve Babylon, dirty Babylon, the feds. What I'm going to suggest is that we actually have a no snitching culture in our families, because for all these thousands of black boys who are involved in being convicted of crimes, not to mention those who have been arrested and prosecuted and all this sort of stuff, and who are doing these things that don't end up being recorded as actual crimes, there's a mum, there's a dad, there are siblings, there are aunties, uncles, grandparents. And I don't know if you're like me, but we don't tend to talk about these things when we're together as families. No one wants to talk about these things. For some reason we think, if we don't talk about it, then maybe either we're just accepting of it and we think this is just normal, or we think that if we just don't talk about it, then maybe, it won't get out and we won't be shamed. I'm going to say something. I say this with, I want to say this very, very carefully. I'm not going to mention any names, but one of the things that you'll see often, you see it in these stories of someone who gets convicted of a crime, or, gets put down, particularly when people get killed, actually, whether it be by the police or in other circumstances. You will almost always hear the parents saying, "Oh, he was a good boy," and yeah, he was a good boy. Of course he was a good boy. Once he would have been a good boy. But my point is that you don't have to dig that much. Just Google is your friend. The internet is your friend. Just do a small little bit of Googling on their names. A small little bit of searching around, and you will very quickly find the truth of the matter, that a lot of the time, not all the time, much of the time, these people are either known gangbangers, known to be involved in gangs, known to be drillers, known to be active in that world, they've got rap sheets of their own going back many, many years, and my point is not to denigrate them. Trust me, one thing you should understand, that this video has been put out on International Men's Day. One thing you should understand, I know the majority of you guys watching these videos are men as well, and of the females who are watching as well, I know that you are aware and concerned about the situation that our boys and men find themselves in, and the things, the stuff, the negative things that boys and men are doing that are ruining what's going on in our communities. One thing I'm crystal clear on is that these boys need our help. They don't just need blaming. Yes, if they're doing wrong, they need to be punished for doing wrong. But ideally, that needs to be taking place in our families. But before that, we need to be, prevention is better than a cure, right? We need to stop the no snitching culture. We need to stop trying to save face. There's no point in pretending. We all have family members or ourselves who have been involved in this life. So we need to understand, we need to start to listen to the boys in particular and the girls, because black girls face particular problems of their own. I advocate for black family and black love, okay? And so we need to work out. Yeah, we need to work on the boys' issues. We need to work out and work on the female issues, so that the males and the females can start to come together more consistently and form strong and stable units to now bring in new life, all right? But my point is that we are failing. I'm going to make it plain. I believe that we as black families here in the UK are failing our boys. This is happening over generations. We are failing and failing and failing our boys, and we need to understand and work out why that is. Why are we failing them? What are the certain practices that we're doing, certain elements of our normal ways of behaving? What are those things that we're doing that are causing our boys in particular to go astray at the level that they're going astray, to achieve so low when it comes to education, and to be so prolific when it comes to criminality, particularly violent criminality? And I want to talk about some of these things in the future. I've got so many ideas about things I want to talk about, but I understand that some of the topics that I want to talk about really need to be framed very, very carefully so that it's clear what I'm saying. Now I've got a lot more people watching my videos than I used to. I've got to be very careful with how I say things to not get misquoted and misinterpreted, all right? But one of the things I definitely want to start to delve into and dig into a lot more is emotional development. What I want to do is just end the video by just saying, make sure you do subscribe to the channel, make sure you like, let me know your comments. Listen to a song by Bashi called That's How Black Boys Lose Their Smile, okay? And there's another song, Wretch32 has put another song out recently as well with Little Sims. Listen to those songs. Listen to those songs. I'll give a massive shout out to some of these elder grime artists, Bashi and Wretch. I'll give a massive shout out to them because they are starting to dig into and talk about some of these things. They're big guys now in their 30s, maybe even 40s, And this tends to happen, I know from experience. Once you start getting to them ages, you start to become a lot more reflective. And it's on us, slightly older ones, to be males in particular, to be really expressing some of these things, talking some of these things, and putting into practice the learnings and the better ways of being and operating that can help our young black boys to keep their smiles. All right, so check those songs out. Take care. Hope you've enjoyed this, and I will speak to you soon. All right, peace.